The ping of the incoming email echoed like a racing heartbeat. Lucas clicked with hesitation, and there it was. Promotion confirmed, new position and salary adjustment. A smile spread across his face before he could stop it, a mix of relief and fear. This was the recognition he had been waiting years for, but it also marked the beginning of a dilemma that had been growing inside him. On that bright screen, he didn't just see numbers, he saw the shadow of expectations that would soon come for him. In the following days, the new position brought more responsibilities and admiring looks. Yet with every compliment, Lucas thought about how he would break the news to his mother. Donna Marcia, always so attentive to her son's achievements, would see it as a chance to help Bruno, as she always put it. The mere idea made him feel the weight of a burden he no longer wanted to carry. The memory of his younger brother came with both anger and tenderness. Bruno, impulsive and dreamy, lived his life moving between promises and failures. He had asked for money so many times Lucas had lost count. Their mother, with her blind love, insisted that he just needs one more chance. But Lucas knew better. Every chance was just another bottomless pit. That night, sitting at the small table in his apartment, he made his choice. He wouldn't tell them about the raise. Not out of malice, but out of survival. He picked up his phone, opened the banking app, and looked at the numbers. For the first time, he thought of himself first, and it felt almost like a sin. He guarded the secret with the precision of someone hiding a dangerous treasure. He shut down his computer, looked up at the ceiling, and whispered to himself, "No one needs to know." The lie, small and silent, was born right there, unobtrusive as a seed, but with roots ready to spread. Have you ever had to lie to protect your own peace? Then stick around until the end, because this story will make you think about how far we should go to take care of ourselves. And if you like real emotional stories like this one, subscribe to the channel right now, because here, every story will strike a chord with you in a different way. The following Sunday, Lucas went to his mother's house. The smell of freshly brewed coffee and corn cake filled the air, bringing back childhood memories. Donna Marcia greeted him with a warm hug, the kind that always made him feel like a little boy again. But the comfort quickly faded when Bruno showed up, barefoot, complaining about his overdue rent. "If I just had a little help, I could sort it out," Bruno said, throwing a subtle glance his brother's way. Lucas forced a smile and changed the subject. Their mother, sighing, talked about her younger son's struggles, trying to stir up the old compassion. Lucas just stirred his coffee, watching the dark reflection in his cup, where he seemed to see his own guilt staring back. As Donna Marcia talked about bills and her plans to help Bruno get back on his feet, Lucas realized how much that cycle kept repeating itself. It was as if time wasn't moving forward. It was just spinning around the same problem. He loved his mother, but that love came with a side of exhaustion. During lunch, Bruno shared another one of his business ideas, selling custom t-shirts. Lucas tried to be supportive without making any commitments, but his mother looked at him as if she was expecting more. "You've always been the responsible one, son. Your brother needs you," she said, not realizing how much those words felt like a knife to his heart. As he left his mother's house, Lucas breathed in the fresh outside air, like someone escaping a stuffy room. In his heart, the relief of having kept his secret was mixed with the pain of seeing his mother's hopeful gaze. He knew the lie would protect him, but it was also starting to build a wall between them. The following days became an exercise in disguise. Lucas learned to choose his words carefully, like someone walking on cracked ground. When his mother asked about work, he replied with generalities, "Same as always, really busy." He avoided numbers, details, or any mention of changes.
The lie slipped into their conversations with the ease of a habit. Bruno, on the other hand, seemed to sense something in the air. He sent messages asking for help just this once, promising to pay Lucas back when he got a job. Lucas responded with vague excuses, making up expenses, debts, and even a supposed car repair for a car he had already sold. Each new invention took him farther from the truth, and, paradoxically, farther from himself. The nights became too quiet. He ate dinner alone, watching TV without really seeing anything. The feeling of guilt, once subtle, began to throb like a wound that hadn't healed properly. He wondered if the lie was actually the right path, or just a way of postponing the inevitable explosion. During one of their phone calls, Donna Marcia mentioned that Bruno had been down lately, and that maybe a small help would motivate him. Lucas, tired, replied that he was going through a tight spot himself. His mother believed him, but her voice carried a note of worry and disappointment that hit him hard. After hanging up, Lucas stared at the phone, feeling like a stranger in his own family. The lie protected him, but it also isolated him. It was like wearing armor that, instead of defending him, kept him from feeling anything. And deep down, he feared the day he would have to take it off. On an ordinary Friday, after an exhausting week, Lucas decided to treat himself. A new cell phone. Nothing fancy, but a symbol that he was finally enjoying the fruits of his own labor. When he took a picture of the device and posted it on social media, he had no idea of the domino effect that would follow. A few hours later, the first comment appeared. "Nice new phone. Someone who's supposedly broke doesn't buy one of those." Signed by Bruno. Lucas's stomach flipped. He tried to laugh it off, to respond lightly, but the anxiety had already begun to eat away at his chest.
That weekend, when visiting his mother, the subject came up in a roundabout way. "So, what's with the new phone?" Donna Marcia asked with a curious smile. Lucas choked on his coffee. "A good sale," he lied, trying to sound natural. But Bruno, sitting beside her, shot him a sharp, almost amused look, like someone who had just confirmed a suspicion. The atmosphere in the house grew thick, almost tangible. Bruno kept asking indirect questions, and his mother, between comments, let slip. "If you got a raise, son, you could have said something." Lucas responded with a forced laugh, but his heart was pounding like a drum. He realized the wall of lies was starting to crack. As he left the house, the wind felt colder. On his way home, he deleted the post, feeling the invisible weight of suspicion hanging over him. The secret, once under control, now felt like a ticking time bomb about to explode, and he knew Bruno would be the first to light the fuse. The following Sunday, the family lunch had the usual smells: rice, roasted chicken, and tension in the air. Donna Marcia served the plates in silence, avoiding Lucas's gaze. Bruno, on the other hand, seemed to be waiting for the right moment to strike. "So, bro, how's work? I heard someone got promoted over there." His tone was light, but the provocation was obvious. Lucas swallowed slowly, choosing his words like someone defusing a bomb. "Nothing major, Bruno. Just more responsibilities. No raise." His mother frowned, skeptical, but didn't push it. Even so, the discomfort hung over the table, turning every bite into an effort. After lunch, Donna Marcia asked to speak with him alone. "Son, can I ask you something? Are you really doing okay with money?" Lucas hesitated, feeling his heart race. "I am, Mom, but everything's the same. They just gave me more tasks, that's all." The almost imperceptible slip didn't go unnoticed. Her eyes narrowed, but she just nodded. Bruno watched from the doorway, pretending not to listen. Lucas knew he was hearing every word. The game of lies was becoming a dangerous chessboard, where one wrong move could make everything crumble. When he left the house, he felt something break inside him. For the first time, the lie seemed to have a life of its own, and he was a prisoner within it. The emotional distance between him and his mother was growing like a shadow, silent
and inevitable. The following days were long and heavy. At work, Lucas tried to focus, but his mind kept wandering through memories and regrets. Carla, his coworker, noticed his distant look and asked if everything was okay. He answered with a tired smile. "Family, you know how it is." She didn't press further, but her eyes showed empathy, an empathy that disarmed him. During the coffee break, Carla talked about boundaries. "Sometimes we need to step back from people we love so we don't lose ourselves," she said, not knowing how deeply her words hit home.
When he arrived, he found Bruno standing beside her, arms crossed with a triumphant look. "So it's true?" Donna Marcia asked, holding up the paper. "You lied to me?" The silence stretched. Lucas tried to speak, but the words came out jumbled. "Mom, I needed some peace." "Peace?" she repeated, her voice choked. "By lying to me? By hiding things from me?" Bruno seized the opening. "I told you, Mom, he always wanted to get rid of us." The pain on her face was sharper than any shout. Lucas wanted to explain, but he realized the verdict was already in. He left the house with his heart in pieces, carrying only the feeling that the lie, so carefully built, had turned against him. The secret was no longer a refuge. Now, it was the trigger for the ruin he had so deeply feared. In the days that followed, Donna Marcia's silence was more painful than any words. Lucas tried calling, sent messages, but got no response. Meanwhile, Bruno spread his version of the fact to all their relatives, that Lucas was hiding money out of selfishness, while their mother struggled to help her problematic son. At work, Lucas tried to stay focused, but his mind was elsewhere. Every phone notification was a reminder of the growing distance between him and his mother. When he finally managed to speak with her, the conversation was cold. "I didn't expect this from you, son. I thought our family was more important than money." The words cut deep. "Mom, I lied because I couldn't keep bankrolling Bruno anymore. I just wanted some time for myself." On the other end of the line, the silence was heavy. "You could have trusted me," she replied, her voice trembling. Before he could say anything else, the call dropped or was ended. Bruno, satisfied with the chaos, sent a poisonous text. "Now she knows who you really are." Lucas threw his phone on the couch and stared at the ceiling, his eyes watery. What he feared most had happened. His mother saw him as the villain. That night, Lucas understood that the lie hadn't just destroyed trust. It had distorted the image his mother had of him, turning love into doubt. And perhaps that was the hardest wound to heal. Without the connection to his mother, Lucas's life became a silent desert. The daily messages stopped, the Sunday visits vanished, and even the smell of coffee and cake felt like a distant memory. In his apartment, the echo of his own actions tormented him. The secret, once a companion, now kept him trapped in loneliness. Carla noticed the change. "You seem empty," she told him over coffee after work. Lucas just nodded, not having the courage to tell her everything. "You know when you try to do the right thing but end up losing what matters most?" She looked at him with tenderness. "Maybe you haven't lost it. You're just making space to rebuild."
But rebuilding required a strength he didn't yet possess. At night, the silence crushed him. He would return from work to an apartment that was tidy, yet lifeless. Every corner seemed to reflect his mother's absence, Bruno's distant laughter, and a guilt that wouldn't fade. On an impulse, he picked up the phone and almost dialed her number. He stopped at the last digit. "She doesn't want to hear from me," he whispered. The sound of his own voice in the emptiness startled him. He tossed the phone aside and just stared into the dark. That night, Lucas realized he was exiled not by choice, but by consequence. The lie had freed him from his brother, but had imprisoned him within himself. And perhaps that was the real price of the peace he had so desperately sought. The days dragged on at a slow, almost colorless pace. Lucas started arriving at work earlier and leaving later, trying to fill the void that followed him. When he got home, the silence greeted him like an old friend. He began revisiting childhood memories, the afternoons playing soccer with Bruno, his mother's laughter, the Sunday lunches, and wondering at what point it had all been lost. On a cold night, he opened a drawer and found an old photo album. The pictures showed a united family, still untouched by resentment. In one of them, Bruno was smiling with an arm around his shoulder, and Doña Marcia held them both, looking proud. Lucas ran his fingers over the image and felt a lump in his throat. "Where did we lose our way?" he murmured. At work, Carla remained his anchor. "You can still fix things," she told him one day, "but you might need to forgive before you can be forgiven." Lucas thought about that for hours. Had he really lied only to protect himself, or was it also out of fear of facing his own resentment? One evening, he walked to his mother's house, but stopped across the street. The lights were on. For a moment, he saw Bruno leaving with his usual careless air. The scene made him step back. "It's not time yet," he thought. In that moment, Lucas realized that the silence, however painful, also served as a mirror. He was beginning, slowly, to understand that loving someone didn't mean erasing yourself, and that perhaps for the first time, he was learning how to love in a healthy way. While Lucas was trying to put himself back together, Bruno's world was starting to fall apart. Without his brother's support, his debts piled up, and his job promises turned into excuses. Doña Marcia did her best to help him, but the bills kept growing, and the exhaustion began to wear on her. "You need to change, Bruno," she told him one night, sounding worn out. "You can't live like this forever." He replied irritably, "Well, if Lucas were here, things would be different." She fell silent, and the weight of his words hung between them. For the first time, she wondered if she had judged the wrong son.
The following days were a series of small crises. Bruno started missing job interviews, avoiding his mother, disappearing for hours. When a neighbor mentioned she'd seen him asking to borrow money, Donna Marcia felt her heart sink. She remembered Lucas's words and the pain in his eyes when he tried to explain himself. One morning, Bruno showed up clearly upset. "Mom, I need money, now." When he heard her say no, he exploded. "So now you're going to let me end up on the street because of your perfect son?" Donna Marcia cried, not from anger, but from exhaustion. For the first time, she let him walk out without trying to fix his problem. When the door closed, she sat at the table and stared into space. The house seemed to echo with regret. Tears streamed down her face silently, and she whispered, "My God, what have I done to my boys?" The phone rang one night, breaking weeks of silence. Lucas looked at the screen, and his heart raced. "Mom!" For a second, he hesitated to answer. When he finally did, Donna Marcia's voice came through, trembling but gentle. "Son, we need to talk." They met at the same apartment where so many arguments had happened. Her expression was different, tired but calm. "Lucas, I've come to understand a lot these past few days. Bruno, he hasn't changed, and I saw how much you carried alone." Tears began to fall, and she continued, "Forgive me for judging you so harshly." Lucas couldn't answer right away. Emotion choked him. "Mom, I was wrong too. I should have trusted you, but I was afraid. Afraid of disappointing you. Afraid of looking like the bad guy for wanting to take care of myself." She held his hands and smiled through her tears.
You were never the bad one, my son. Just tired. So very tired." The conversation lasted for hours. They revisited the past, the times Bruno had been bailed out at Lucas's expense, and how love can sometimes get confused with obligation. In the end, they held each other in a long embrace, letting forgiveness fill the space that once belonged to guilt. When they parted, there was something different in the air. This wasn't just reconciliation, it was growth. For the first time, mother and son saw each other as two people trying to find their way back, not as the strong one and the dependent one, but as equals. Over time, the relationship between Lucas and Dona Marcia found a new rhythm. He started visiting her regularly, but now there was respect for each other's boundaries. No requests, no expectations, just honest conversations, hesitant laughter, and a peace that once seemed impossible. One Sunday, while having coffee on the porch, she remarked, "It's funny, isn't it? Sometimes you need to step back to really see each other." Lucas smiled, watching the sunlight fall on his mother's face. "I think I needed to lose what we had to understand what it was really worth." Carla, always nearby, noticed the lightness that had returned to his eyes. "You seem more like yourself," she said during a work lunch. Lucas thanked her and told her about the reconciliation. "This time, I'm learning to say no without the guilt." She replied, "So you're finally saying yes to yourself."
Meanwhile, Bruno remained distant. He had tried to reach out a few times, but Lucas didn't respond. He knew he still loved his brother, but he also knew that love didn't mean giving in again. When he got home that night, Lucas looked in the mirror and recognized himself again. The reflection showed not a man who had lied, but someone who had survived the weight of expectations. For the first time, he felt light, whole, and at peace with his choices. Months passed, and Lucas's life seemed to have finally found its balance. Work was going well. His relationship with his mother was solid and serene, and he had learned to live with the silence without fear. Then, on a Saturday afternoon, his phone buzzed. A familiar number, long forgotten. Bruno. For a few seconds, Lucas stared at the screen, the name flashing like an echo from the past. He answered, his voice calm. "Hi, Bruno." On the other end, his brother seemed hesitant, without his old arrogance. "Man, I'm in a tough spot. I lost my job again. I just wanted to talk." Lucas closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. The old instinct to fix everything resurfaced, but something inside him held it back. They met at a simple cafe, the same one Lucas often went to with Carla. Bruno looked defeated, his shoulders slumped, his eyes tired. "I know I messed up, bro. I ruined everything. I just wanted a chance." Lucas listened in silence, his heart torn between compassion and caution. "Bruno," he said finally, his voice steady, "I love you, but I can't save you anymore. Only you can do that for yourself." His brother lowered his head, tears falling. For the first time, there was no fight, no manipulation, just the truth. After Bruno left, Lucas watched the street outside, the gentle movement of people, the distant sound of laughter. He picked up his phone and sent his mother a short message. "It's okay. I think it's finally over." She replied with a heart. Lucas smiled. The lie that had once trapped him had transformed into a lesson, and in that moment, with the sun streaming through the window and his heart at peace, he understood, sometimes the hardest love to live is the love that chooses to protect itself.
How often do we blame ourselves for choosing ourselves? Sometimes the truest love is the one that sets boundaries. If this story resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because every week there are new stories that make us reflect on life, family, and what truly matters.